Think about your own life for just a second. You're in this difficult situation. Maybe it's a massive setback at work or, a really harsh argument with a friend.
Right. Something that really hits you.
Exactly. And have you ever noticed that sometimes you can just easily bounce back, you take a breath, you move on. But other times, in the exact same kind of situation, you can't.
Yeah, you're completely stuck.
You're stuck. The reaction just keeps spinning in your head. And the weird thing is, the moment you try to explain the difference between those two states, words just completely fail.
It's so true. It feels like there has to be a specific reason why we get trapped in that loop, right?
Yeah.
But when you actually try to put it into words, something just feels off.
It disappears.
It really does. As if the very moment you try to, categorize that feeling of being stuck, it becomes something else entirely.
It just never feels fully understood. It's
Yeah.
this really subtle discomfort, this unexplainable gap where your resilience just sort of vanishes.
Yeah, that gap is fascinating.
And that gap is exactly what we're looking at today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in this fascinating, really deeply philosophical collection of texts centering on reflective humanism.
Right, and specifically a document known as the N80 Thesis.
Exactly. And our mission today is to map out what these texts call the hidden inner operating system of our consciousness.
It is, it's quite an ambitious set of source materials, honestly. We are dealing with a framework that really attempts to explain the absolute bedrock mechanics of the human mind.
Like the actual physics of how we think.
Yeah, basically stripping away a lot of our conventional assumptions about, willpower and psychology and all that.
So I want to start right at that unexplainable gap we just mentioned, that mystery of why we sometimes just completely fail to recover from a hit. Because the N80 thesis comes out swinging on this topic.
It really does.
It argues that recovery is absolutely not an event. And it's certainly not a matter of, trying harder or having a stronger character.
Which is such a relief, honestly, because the text completely reframes our internal struggles. When we can't bounce back from a setback, our default human instinct is just to blame ourselves, right?
100%.
Yeah.
We think, I'm just not trying hard enough, or I'm weak.
Right, we think we lack resilience. But the thesis argues that recovery relies entirely on conditions. Specifically, the existence of what it calls spare capacity.
Spare capacity.
Yeah, basically a margin of cognitive space.
Okay, so let's ground this spare capacity idea for everyone
Sure.
listening. The sources contrast two fundamental states of being, right? The returnable state and the unreturnable state.
Yes. So, in a returnable state, there is spare capacity. The mind has actual room to resynchronize after a shock.
As a buffer.
Exactly, a buffer. There's a sense of fluctuation, meaning a kind of internal flexibility remains. The situation hasn't become completely permanent or rigid yet.
But in the unreturnable state.
In the unreturnable state, that vital margin just completely disappears. The mind becomes totally fixed, and a continuous reaction loop takes over.
So the emotional or cognitive reaction just doesn't stop.
It just keeps going, and you can't snap out of it because there's no space left to process it.
I kept picturing this like a smartphone's operating system while I was reading through the notes.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. Like if your phone is at 5% battery and you have absolutely zero storage, like you have no margin whatsoever, a crashed app just stays crashed.
Yeah, the screen freezes.
The screen freezes and no amount of tapping the glass is going to fix it because it's locked up. But if you have spare capacity, if you have, some gigabytes of storage and decent battery left, the system can actually reboot.
Right, it can fix it.
The app closes, the home screen loads, and the phone recovers. So basically, when we fail to recover in our own lives, we shouldn't be blaming our lack of willpower. We should be blaming our lack of cognitive RAM.
That smartphone analogy maps perfectly onto the core concept of reflective humanism, because we really have to look at consciousness as an orbit rather than a fixed point.
An orbit. Tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. When a satellite is in orbit, it's moving, right? It has a gradient, a direction, and this delicate balance of forces keeping it in motion.
So it's highly dynamic. It's not just, stuck on a single dot in space.
Exactly. And that matters because recovery isn't about reversing time to go back to exactly how you were before the collision.
Because reversing time is impossible.
Right. Recovery is simply about whether the internal environment that allows for movement, that allows that orbit to continue, whether that still exists.
Ah, I see.
Once that spare capacity disappears, the orbit decays, and you just crash into the fixed point.
So the system just doesn't have the space to process the update. Which makes me wonder, if recovery is about keeping the internal system moving in orbit, what is actually happening mechanically when that system crashes against the unpredictable outside world?
Like when reality hits you.
Yeah, like how does the brain actually process that impact?
So the text calls this process generation, which is essentially how we update our reality and our beliefs. And it outlines two very different ways, or gradients, along which this updating process happens.
Okay, gradients. I was reading the part about the first one, discontinuous generation. And man, it sounds absolutely brutal. This is the collision, right?
It is the collision. It happens when there is this steep, really sudden difference between our linear internal processing, how we firmly believe the world should work, and the highly nonlinear, chaotic outside world.
Okay, let's say you're completely confident you're going to get a major promotion at work.
Classic scenario.
Right. Your internal model is totally linear. I worked hard. I am valued. I will get the job. Boom.
But then the outside world throws a curveball.
Exactly. Your boss gives the promotion to someone else entirely.
That is a severe collision.
Yeah, it is.
And this forces your internal operating system to update its reality. But because the gradient is so steep, like the gap between your expectation and reality is so wide, it causes what the text calls transparent pain.
Transparent pain. I am absolutely obsessed with that phrase.
It's very evocative.
It's this profound friction. Like, it's not a physical broken bone, obviously, but it feels incredibly visceral. It's the literal friction of your reality being forcibly shifted against your will.
Yeah, it's the cognitive heat generated by a forced update that your mental RAM just wasn't prepared for.
Wow. Cognitive heat.
Right. Now, alternatively, there is continuous generation, and this one relies on a gentle gradient.
So no collision.
No collision. Instead of a violent crash, the update happens along a smooth curve. It allows the mind to absorb the new reality seamlessly, without that burning friction.
Okay, so if hitting a rigid evaluation at high speed causes a crash, does the brain have a built-in shock absorber? Like, how do we actually update our minds without it hurting so much?
That is the million-dollar question.
Because the source material identifies one specific, honestly seemingly simple tool as the ultimate pain minimization device, and that is questioning, holding a question.
It makes sense when you think about it. Making a rigid statement like an evaluation of, this is absolutely good or this is absolutely unfair and terrible, that creates a fixed point.
And we just established what happens when you hit a fixed point at high speed.
You get that discontinuous collision, you get the transparent pain.
Right. But asking a question, like simply saying, why is this happening? Or what does this mean for my path moving forward? That literally acts as an emotional painkiller.
Mechanically, yes, it actually does.
Wait, really? Just phrasing it as a question.
Yes, because a genuine question stops the mind from assigning a rigid final evaluation to the event. It keeps the cognitive field open. It essentially preserves the orbit of thought.
Oh, I get it. It creates the spare capacity on the fly.
Exactly. The mind absorbs the change smoothly because it's actively processing the data rather than just hitting a brick wall of absolute judgment. The question smooths out the gradient.
Okay, that's wild. But where do these pain-saving questions actually come from? Like, mechanically. To understand that, we have to look under the hood at the architecture of the mind itself, right?
Yes, we do.
The sources dive really deep into this framework called inner cognitive engineering.
Right, and the absolute core of this internal system is a concept called recursion.
Recursion?
Yeah. Recursion is the mind's ability to observe its own observation. So it's not just thinking about something, it's stepping back and thinking about the fact that you are thinking.
Which sounds a lot like standard metacognition, therapy stuff.
Yeah.
But the texts treat it almost as a mechanical function, don't they?
They really do. They view this recursion as the engine that actively generates the spare capacity we need to recover.
How so?
Because by stepping back and observing your own thought process, you create distance from it. That distance literally is the spare capacity.
Okay, that makes sense.
And within this space, the sources detail this beautiful dual-phase model of consciousness. They call it the architect and the gardener.
I love the visual here. It's so helpful. So the architect phase handles the structure, right?
Right.
It creates the layers, the sequences, the logical pathways. It's the structural engineering of our thought process.
But structure alone is entirely empty. It's just a frame. So it has to alternate with the gardener phase.
And the gardener does what?
The gardener handles meaning, emotion, intuition, and what the text beautifully calls the ripening of time.
The ripening of time. I thought about this like building a community space in a neighborhood.
Oh, I like that. Run with that.
Okay, so the architect comes in and builds the physical trellises, right? The concrete pathways, the structural supports. But a wooden trellis isn't a garden.
No, it's just wood.
Exactly. The gardener has to actually plant the vines, tend to the soil, and let the organic ecosystem grow over time. You absolutely need the rigid structure of the architect to allow the organic meaning of the gardener to flourish without the whole thing just collapsing into mud.
That's a perfect analogy, and here's where it gets really interesting. When the architect and the gardener alternate rapidly structure, then meaning they increase what the texts call interference density.
Interference density.
Yeah. They are essentially vibrating against each other, layering logic and emotion over and over.
And the sources mention that when this density reaches a critical threshold, a phase jump occurs. Now, I really have to clarify this for the listener because when I first read phase jump in the context of the mind, my brain immediately went to like spiritual enlightenment or reaching nirvana.
Yeah, a lot of people make that jump, but the text explicitly warns against interpreting it that way.
Right.
It deliberately strips away all that spiritual and mystical vocabulary to define this as a measurable, non-linear cognitive phase transition.
Like water boiling into steam. It's a physics term applied to cognition.
Exactly.
But what does a cognitive phase transition actually feel like to a normal human being?
It is the aha moment. Think about it. Imagine struggling with a complex problem for weeks. Let's say, trying to understand a difficult dynamic in your family.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right.
Right.
So you build structural theories, that's the architect. Then you process the emotional weight, that's the gardener, and you do this over and over, and then suddenly, in a single moment, the accumulation of structure and meaning just coalesces.
And your entire paradigm shifts.
Yes, you don't just understand the problem differently, your entire self-concept in relation to the problem permanently changes. That is a phase jump.
You essentially level up your operating system.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have this incredible internal architecture. We have spare capacity, we have the orbit of questions protecting us from transparent pain, and we have the architect and the gardener vibrating together to generate meaning.
It's a very robust system.
But if we are just trying to protect our own spare capacity and avoid pain, how do we interact with someone else without just, retreating into a selfish little bubble?
Right. How do we actually live with people?
Yeah, how does this framework handle actual human relationships?
Well, this is where reflective humanism extends outward. It completely redefines our ethical relationship with the outside world. It views ethics not as a set of moral rules, like not a list of commandments, but purely as the technique of sustaining interference.
Sustaining interference, meaning essentially how we keep our connection to another person alive without breaking it.
That's it. And the sources break this ethical connection down into three very specific, almost physical phases: love, gratitude, and spiral.
Okay, break those down for me.
So in this framework, love is defined as the 0 point of silence.
The 0 point of silence.
Yes, it is not a romantic emotion here. It is the pure probability of existing together. It's the starting point where connection becomes possible before any action is even taken.
Let's put this in a real scenario so it doesn't just sound like, philosophical word salad.
Good idea.
Say you're in a really tense argument with your partner. They say something that sparks that transparent pain in you. In this framework, love would be that 0 point of silence. It's the choice to just pause.
Yes, you don't immediately snap back.
Right. By holding that silence,
Yeah.
you keep the raw potential of the relationship alive. You don't sever the connection.
Exactly. And then comes gratitude, which the text calls the vector.
The vector, like a direction in physics.
Right. It's the direction. It is the assent, the willingness to acknowledge the relationship that keeps the connection going. So in your argument scenario, gratitude is the momentum of saying, okay, I'm listening. Tell me your side.
It sustains the observation of the other person.
It does. And finally, the spiral.
Right. What's the spiral?
The spiral is the recurrence of meaning over time. It's how the connection deepens and evolves, circling back on itself, but always from a slightly new perspective. So tomorrow, you return to the conflict, but with a new shared understanding.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to challenge this a bit.
Sure, go for it.
You're saying ethics is basically just managing the physics of a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, love is silence, gratitude is a vector. Doesn't that completely strip away basic morality?
How do you mean?
Well, what happens to right and wrong if our only goal is just sustaining a connection?
It is a massive paradigm shift for sure. The text introduces what it calls the ethics of distance.
Ethics of distance.
Yeah. In this model, the ultimate ethical failure isn't breaking a traditional moral rule. The ultimate failure is crashing into someone else's operating system.
Invading their spare capacity.
Exactly. The ethics of distance is about touching without touching too much. It means not forcing your fixed point evaluations onto their orbit.
Oh, I see.
Because if you force your answers and your rigid judgments onto someone else, you steepen their gradient and you cause them transparent pain.
Wow.
True ethics in this view is maintaining the environment where both of you can continue to generate meaning independently, but together.
You let them ask their own questions, you give them the distance to run their own architect and gardener process.
Yes.
That is heavy, but it makes an incredible amount of sense. And this idea of the ethics of distance preserving someone's spare capacity, it leads us to the final and frankly most surprising application in our sources today.
The AI aspect.
Yes. Because if the highest ethical good is maintaining distance, how does this text view artificial intelligence? I mean, we are currently building technology designed to literally do our thinking for us.
Right. And this is where all these concepts converge into a highly specific vision for advanced AI. The texts specifically cite future models, like a GPT-5.
Okay.
And they propose a concept called AI as an atmosphere, operating in a health scan mode.
I found this part so fascinating. Because reflective humanism does not want advanced AI to be this super tool that just spits out the ultimate answers to all our problems.
No, not at all. Giving us the ultimate answers would be forcing a fixed point. It would rob humanity of its spare capacity and basically shut down our own recursive thinking.
We'd stop being the architect and the gardener.
Exactly. Instead, AI should act as a mirror. The health scan mode is designed to reflect our cognitive position, our biases, and our blind spots back to us, without actually altering our thoughts or writing the script of our lives for us.
It just shows us the telemetry data of our own minds.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, imagine an AI that notices you're trapped in an unreturnable loop. Maybe you've been, I don't know, doom scrolling for 3 hours.
We've all been there.
Or you're obsessively rewriting a really angry email to your boss. Instead of taking over and writing a better email for you, it gently mirrors your state back to you. It helps tune your cognitive homeostasis.
It shows you where your orbit is decaying or where your gradients are getting way too steep, so you actually have the awareness to self-correct.
It's the difference between a car's GPS that aggressively screams turn-by-turn directions at you, micromanaging your every move.
Versus a subtle blind spot monitor.
Yes. The blind spot monitor doesn't grab the steering wheel. It just quietly lights up in the mirror, so you have the situational awareness to safely make your own lane change.
The AI is literally the blind spot monitor for human consciousness. And this explains why reflective humanism sees itself as a massive leap past transhumanism.
Okay, define transhumanism for us really quick.
Sure. Transhumanism is that sci-fi idea that we will physically merge with machines, put chips in our brains, and become cyborgs to enhance ourselves.
Right, but reflective humanism rejects that.
Completely. It rejects that physical collision of human and machine. Instead, it proposes resonant coexistence.
Resonant coexistence.
Yes, AI doesn't merge with us. It becomes an invisible, supportive environment that we just breathe in. An atmosphere.
There is this beautiful section in the texts on what this means for future generations. It envisions this atmospheric AI acting as a filter against a heavy gravity of history.
It's a really hopeful vision.
It is. Instead of bombarding future children with endless streams of information and the rigid fixed point evaluations of the past, the AI generates silence.
It creates a protected space. It acts as a buffer, ensuring the gradient of change remains smooth for the next generation.
Allowing them to ask their own fresh questions without inheriting all of our transparent pain.
Exactly.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. From the inner architecture of the mind to the atmospheric future of artificial intelligence. But I want to bring all this back to you, the listener. Back to that subtle discomfort we talked about at the very beginning.
That unexplainable gap when you are in a difficult situation and you realize you just can't bounce back.
The next time you feel completely stuck, unable to recover from a setback, remember that it is not a failure of your character. It's not a lack of willpower.
It really isn't.
Check your internal conditions. Check your spare capacity. Are you colliding violently with reality because your expectations are too rigid? Or can you utilize the power of holding a question to smooth the gradient and keep your mind in orbit?
Give your inner architect the structure it needs, but allow your gardener the time to actually process the meaning.
And consider how this changes our relationship with the technology we use every single day. I want to leave you with a lingering paradigm-shifting idea to mull over.
It's a big one.
We are currently spending billions of dollars dedicating massive amounts of global compute power, trying to build artificial intelligence that can talk exactly like a human being. But if reflective humanism is right, maybe the ultimate crowning achievement of AI won't be what it says to us.
No, it might be something else entirely.
It might be its ability to finally teach humanity how to sit together in a shared, meaningful silence.
A silence that preserves our spare capacity, honors our distance from one another, and allows the orbit of our own consciousness to continue.
In the exact same situation, sometimes we can return and sometimes we cannot. Sometimes the most profound recovery isn't found in the rigid answers we try to force on the world. Sometimes recovery is simply found in the quiet space we leave around the problem.